Hey there, I'm Demetria. I'm your friendly content strategist, and I've been a podcaster for 2 decades. And so I'm really glad that you're tuning in today because we're going to be talking about that ultimate podcast strategy to grow your online presence. But before we dive into today's topic, I wanted to invite you to book a coffee chat with me if you are interested as a solopreneur or a content creator that's just trying to figure out your next steps in digital marketing. This is a casual, no pressure way for us to connect. So check out the link in the show notes to grab a spot. Also, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to check out my YouTube channel where I drop even more content on content strategy and marketing. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform. I've got some amazing courses for solopreneurs in the show notes, so be sure to take a look. In this episode, I'm going to walk you through the essentials of developing a content strategy for your podcast, helping you not only to create great episodes, but also market them effectively. Now, I have another podcast called Soul Podcasting that's all about helping beginning podcasters to podcast with confidence. But I wanted to bring that topic over here at Her Business Elevated for you guys as well, because I know how important it is to use different facets of marketing to promote our solopreneur endeavors, our ventures, our businesses. And we can use so many different tactics, not just our YouTube channel or a blog post or social media, but we can also use podcasting. So I just wanted to bring that topic here today because it's been something I've been thinking about a lot and I want to share with you. So I hope you're ready. Grab your favorite drink, your favorite beverage, and we're going to get into the topic. So why do you need a content strategy for your podcast? Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of podcasting, let's talk about why having a strategy is essential. I do talk about content strategy on several episodes, so you can go back in the archives and see what I've been talking about the past couple of shows. But whether you're running a podcast or a YouTube channel or a blog or social media, everything you create should be driven by purpose. When you understand your why, you'll have clarity on your message and a clear direction for your content, no matter what's happening in your life. And I know that we're all very busy people, super busy solopreneurs, whether you're a full-time employee and this is your part-time gig, you have things to do at home. There's housekeeping stuff that we have to do. I know I'm talking predominantly to women on this podcast, so I know that your life is super busy. Just being a woman inherently comes with the idea that we are loaded with responsibilities. We are nurturers and we are oftentimes helping not only ourselves and our families, but those in our community. And typically we're involved in all types of outreach programs. We're helping so many people do so many things, helping others to fulfill their dreams and to reach their goals, in addition to us trying to reach ours, which sometimes we end up putting ourselves in the back burner. So that's something that we often find ourselves doing as women because just possibly how we were wired and societal expectations and that kind of thing. But because you're busy, we can often get caught up in the actionable steps that we want to take, but sometimes forget the purpose of why we created what we did. So if you're creating a business online, in addition to all the millions of other tasks that you have to do, the thing that's going to keep you motivated for sure is your purpose. And whether you're starting or launching a podcast for the very first time or continuing a project that you've been working on for some time, a solid podcast strategy helps you to identify your audience's pain points and provide them solutions. It helps you stay consistent and intentional with your content, and it increases engagement as you start to build community. You're going to also use your podcast as a powerful marketing channel for your business. So I'm going to break down these steps to helping you create that ultimate podcast strategy so you can maximize your impact. And the very first tip I want to give you is to define your podcast goals. So I'm going to say congratulations on stepping into this world of podcasting. But before you hit that record button, let's clarify your goals. You're going to ask yourself, do I want to grow my audience? Do I want to establish my brand as an authority, or do I want to drive traffic to my website? Now, you can have either of these goals be your main thing or all of them, but you want to focus on the one or two specific goals that you have for your podcast so that you can focus on that. For example, each time I created a show, I had to ask myself what my goal was. And typically my goal was to grow an audience in the very beginning and not so much to drive traffic, because I knew that it took time to drive traffic. So I was looking to grow an audience, to grow listeners. My second goal was to establish my brand as an authority, because I wanted my topic to be something that is trustworthy, something that's dependable, that it's a resource that my listeners can come back to and realize that this is something that can help them in their journey. Lastly, my goal was also to drive traffic, but again, that for me was a long-term goal because I was depending solely on organic growth, such as SEO tactics, and not paid advertising. So maybe for you, it's a combination of all three, but knowing your objective upfront is going to help you shape your content and your marketing approach. Your second step, I think, would be to know your audience, because your podcast isn't just about what you want to share, it's about who you're serving. Clearly defining your audience will shape the way that you deliver your message. So you'll want to consider who you're speaking to and what challenges they face, and how can your podcast solve their problems. And I talk about this in all of my content strategy support for solopreneurs, because no matter what you're using as your platform to deliver your message, whether it's a podcast or a video or a blog or socials, whatever you're choosing to do, you still have to go through these 3 steps and ask yourself what you know about your audience and what your goals are in reaching your audience. You have to know who you're serving, no matter what platform you're using. So you still have to ask yourself, even with the podcast, who are you speaking to? Of course, that is going to be kind of obvious, right? But then you need to know what challenges they face so that you can start addressing those challenges through your content. And then ask yourself how your podcast actually helps them solve those problems. For example, if your podcast is for aspiring authors, your content should provide guidance on writing or publishing, or maybe even marketing their books, right? So the more specific you are, the stronger your connection will be with your audience. Thirdly, you'll want to develop your podcast content pillars. So these pillars are the core themes of your podcast. And you're going to develop this for your strategy no matter what tactics you use. But for your podcast, think in terms of those pillars and think of them as the backbone of your podcast show. These should align with your expertise and the interests of your audience, that intersection between what you're good at and what your audience wants to hear. For example, on this show, on the Her Business Elevated podcast, my pillars are content strategy, podcasting tips, a little bit of marketing for solopreneurs, which kind of falls into the content strategy for me. And then I do a bit of solopreneur lifestyle and faith and inspiration. So I have about 5 pillar content, but my faith and inspiration is interwoven throughout all of the other content strategy topics. So it's not a standalone topic on the show, but it is something that I consider kind of a backbone or a pillar. So defining your pillars helps keep your content focused, and it prevents you from being scattered. So whenever you show up to create a show, you know exactly what your purpose is, what you come to bring to the table, and how you want to show up. Step number 4 is to brainstorm your podcast episode ideas. Now, this is the fun part for me. It's brainstorming. I love coming up with ideas. And so whether you're running a solo podcast or interviews or maybe roundtable discussions, however you want to do your show, your topics will drive the energy of your show. And here's how you want to generate those ideas. You want to generate them through keyword research, which is using tools that I mentioned many times on this podcast, such as Google Keyword Planner or Answer the Public and Google Trends. And this will help you to see what people are searching for in your industry or your niche. And then you'll want to ask your audience. That is the biggest thing for me. So besides your keyword research, just asking the people that listen to you what they want to hear, right? If you already have an email list or social media following, just ask them what they'd love to hear. It's as simple as that, really. And then you can also continue to look at the trends in your industry. Again, looking at Google Trends, staying ahead of the game by keeping up with hot topics that are in your niche. And then what I would do is create a document, either in Google Docs or Notion or whatever, wherever you take your notes, even an old-fashioned good old pen and paper notebook, and write down your ideas as they come up. So sometimes you might be in the middle of grocery shopping, or you may be driving down the road and suddenly this idea hits you about what you want to add on your show. So make sure you have a good, handy, and convenient way of creating a list of topics as you come up with them. Step 5 is to create a podcast content calendar. If you know anything about me, content calendars is something that I talk about so much because it's what I love to keep organized, and I believe in staying as organized as possible. I'm not always great at it, but any bit of organization that I can add into my work week helps me tremendously to stay on top of things, or at least to keep up without feeling like I'm falling behind. So once you brainstormed your topics, it's a great time to get organized. Without a content calendar, it's easy to fall behind or lose momentum. So you'll want to plan out your episode themes for each month if you are doing themes, or just even episode titles and ideas that you have. Then you'll want to make sure you have a recording schedule. So I've talked about batch recording your videos or batch recording your content. Same thing for your podcast. Batch record them because this saves you time. Right now, I am actually batch recording this podcast. I have already recorded a few that will be on my publication queue for the next couple of weeks. And this one is going a couple of weeks out. And so I also know that I have a podcast course that will be launched really soon that I want to integrate with this podcast. So I'm going to be releasing this show at the same time as the release of that podcast course. So this is why for me, it's important to stay on a batch recording schedule so that I can release my shows at the same time as products that I'm creating. And this is just an idea of one way you can look at batch recording as a way to kind of sync up your products and services that you're offering with your audience at the same time as you're publishing your content. You want to make sure that your content is working in conjunction with your business, with your products, your digital products, or your services. Your publication dates will help you to stay consistent. So make sure as you're recording that you know when you want those episodes to be scheduled. A well-planned calendar keeps you accountable and it helps you maintain consistency in your publishing. So you don't have to publish something every single week if that is not what works for your lifestyle, but being consistent is still important. So figure out what that routine is for you and then just go for it. My step number 6 for you is to record and edit like a pro without breaking the bank, of course. Solopreneurs often operate on shoestring budgets, and I totally get that because that is how I started, and I am still working on kind of a shoestring budget at the moment. I'm taking whatever income I receive from the business and putting it back into the business. So I'm really not operating at a high level of margin. Just because that's where I am in my business at the moment. And that's just full transparency. So when you're operating your business, sometimes you may have a bit of a dry season. Other times you may be in a better season where things are flowing better for you financially. So that's another topic for another day, but seasons do come and go. Seasons do wax and wane. And no matter what's happening in the financial picture of your business, if you just remain consistent, keep putting one foot in front of the other, at some point, you'll see yourself rising above the tide so that you can get where you need to go. So I totally understand shoestring budgets. The good news is that podcasting is one of the most budget-friendly ways to build your brand. And here's what you need. You need your podcast hosting, which is a service like Podbean or Captivate or Buzzsprout, or for me, I'm using Spreaker. You just need a microphone, starting with an affordable USB mic. You can use something like the Blue Yeti, which is what I use. And then there's audio editing software, such as Audacity, which is absolutely free, by the way. So if you are on a budget, then Audacity is something you can start with at no cost. Or Adobe Audition, which is paid, and there's a paid subscription that my husband and I are tapping into right now to access the Adobe Creative Cloud. So we get Audition and Premiere. I do use Premiere a lot for my editing, my YouTube videos, but choose your editing software, and then you'll need graphics and branding. So using tools like Canva to create your podcast cover art or any other images and artwork that you need done. Canva is excellent, and there is a pro version, but there's also a free version. You don't need fancy equipment. You just need to focus on good content and consistency. Step 7 is to promote your podcast like a pro. You want to promote. So we talked about recording like a pro. Now we're going to promote like a pro. So a podcast without promotion is like a hidden gem. No one's going to find your podcast if you don't talk about it. So marketing your podcast is just as important as creating it. So how to spread the word is you want to get on Instagram and TikTok and LinkedIn and share. You want to talk about your podcast on social media. You want to repurpose those key points into social media posts. You want to create a blog post from each episode, like this one. I'm creating a blog post from this podcast episode. I'm also going to be sharing the content from this on my Instagram and on my LinkedIn. You'll want to email your subscribers with updates and upload your episodes even to YouTube, because we know that YouTube now allows podcast uploads through the connected RSS feed. So it's a very automatic way to make sure that each and every one of your podcast episodes are also uploading to YouTube. So a huge game changer is building your email list. And you can directly notify your audience about every new episode. And these are people who have opted in and said, I want to hear from you. So if you haven't started your list yet, get on it ASAP. I recommend any mailing list service that is within your budget that you feel comfortable with, such as Flowdesk or Kit, formerly known as ConvertKit. I've used both of these. I've also used other services like MailChimp and Aweber and a lot of other things, GetResponse, but I recommend Flowdesk just for its easeability and also because it has lots of great, beautiful templates, eye-catching templates you can use. I also am currently on Kit, which I really like for just all the services it provides. So between Flowdesk and Kit, I recommend those, and make sure you go ahead and get an account and start your list if you haven't already, and start promoting your shows, promoting your content to your list every week if possible. This is going to help you promote your podcast like a pro. Step 8 is to adjust and refine your show as you grow. Your podcast strategy is not set in stone. It will grow. Your podcast will grow, you will transition, and as you grow, you'll need to tweak your approach based on your audience feedback, right? Whatever they're telling you that they like or don't like or would recommend that you do more of or less of. You'll want to look at your analytics, and you'll want to look at your industry changes. So for me, I see that in my analytics that my audience is growing, but that they're wanting to hear a specific type of content from me. I'm seeing more peaks in my downloads for certain topics than other topics. I also have received some feedback about the length of my shows. And so some people prefer the really short shows where it's just me talking. Others are really enjoying the interviews. So there's kind of a wide range of the types of people that enjoy my content. So I have to be aware of the types of content I choose to put out there and what I'm comfortable delivering as well. But based on what my audience has told me, it's going to help me refine this show, which allows me to see what are people listening to, at what point during the podcast episode are they dropping off and not listening any longer, how long is too long, and that kind of thing. So that's why I'm starting to offer more shorter shows here and there for those who just want a quick 7 to 10 minute show. Of course, this one is not one of those, but as my podcast grows, I can offer those different things to my different types of listeners. So you'll want to be flexible and just experiment and then refine your strategy over time. So here's some action steps I'm going to give you now to implement your new podcast strategy. So to get started with your strategy today, follow these simple steps. You'll, number 1, want to define your goals. So identify your podcast objectives and determine what success looks like for you. Next, understand your audience. Research your target listeners and tailor your content to their needs. Number 3, plan your content pillars. Establish those key themes that will structure your podcast. 4, create a content calendar. Schedule your recording, your editing, and your publishing dates. 5, optimize your equipment and your tools. So invest in a reliable microphone and editing software without breaking the bank. 6, promote consistently. Share your episodes across your social media, your email list, and your YouTube to maximize your reach. And number 7, refine and adjust. Monitor your analytics, listen to feedback, and tweak your strategy as you need. So are you ready to take your podcast strategy to the next level? I hope this episode gives you a strong foundation to create and grow your podcast with confidence. And if you're looking for some personalized coaching or you need an audit of your current podcast strategy, I'd love to connect with you. I do offer podcast audits. You can find all that information of the services I offer at herbusinesselevated.com. I also have a free resource for you, which is your Launch Confidently podcasting checklist in case you haven't already begun and you would love to start your show, but you just would love to know what exactly do you need to launch with confidence and to launch in a way that all your ducks are in a row and you can check all the boxes, I have a checklist for you. And it is not just a one-pager. This is truly a checklist. It's a workbook, and you'll get everything you need to get started. I share how to plan, produce, launch, and grow, which is kind of my signature steps to your podcasting strategy. I take you through a brainstorming checklist. I help you through discovering your podcast purpose, planning out your show, discover your listener, your podcast style. And then we just go through more planning in the workbook. I also share about equipment that you might want to consider using. And I give you just a couple of different ideas for types of hosting options. And then lastly, we talk about planning your show for the year. We go through a recording checklist and talk about your show notes and launching. So all of this is completely free for you to download over at herbusinesselevated.com. I will leave the direct link to this specific download for you in the show notes as well. If you just want to sit and chat with me about your strategy, whether it's for your content in general, any video content that you might be thinking about creating, or your blogs, or even how you want to go about doing your socials, in addition to your podcast, you can book a coffee chat with me. And that's where I'm offering 20-minute free coffee chats. Again, this is your cozy virtual coffee chat with me, and we'll brainstorm and tackle your burning content questions. This is a relaxed, no pressure environment. And all you do is head over to my Buy Me a Coffee page, which you can find at herbusinesselevated.com/coffee-chat. This way you can support the show with any donation of your choice to buy a coffee for me, and then you can book your spot in my calendar. It's really that simple. This is a 20-minute chat where we can talk about whatever your goals are. You can pick my brain and ask me any questions you want, and I'll help get you started in the right direction for your content. And don't forget, I have even more resources for you, courses and trainings, all kinds of things that I think would help you out. So you can find a link in my show notes for that, and also watch my latest YouTube videos over at youtube.com/@DemetriaZinga. Stay tuned for more interviews, solopreneur business advice, and content strategy tips in upcoming episodes of this show. And if you love this kind of content, be sure to check out my other show, which is Soul Podcasting, where I dive even deeper into podcasting strategies and tips. And once again, don't forget to grab your copy of the Launch Confidently Podcasting Checklist. This link is also in the show notes. And until next time, my friend, I want you to keep creating, keep showing up, and keep elevating your business to your online business success.